Another episode of Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me today, you can see it's been a long, long time. Very happy to have him back here on the live streams. James Babyface Grande, who now should probably be James Swashbuckling Grande. What is up with that stash, dude?
Raleigh Fingers isn't walking through that door anytime soon. So I figured, why not bring back the greatness that is Raleigh Fingers? Raleigh Fingers Grande. I think it rolls off the tongue. It rolls off the tongue. So, I'm just trying it out. I started it as a quarantine stash, and I was very like, I'm going to get it cut. As soon as I get my hair cut, I'm cutting the stash. Got my hair cut. As you can see, kept the stash. We're just gonna ride it out. It's starting to tickle my nose a little bit. I'm starting not to enjoy that, having to itch my nose all the time. But I don't am I still baby face? Like, can I like?
No. This is like Three Musketeers range that you're in right now, dude. I mean, this is like, what, Porthos, Aramis, which should I go? D'Artagnan. I'm looking at this. Yeah, that's Yeah, you're like 19th century French guy all of a sudden. Do you speak French at all?
I speak. I do not.
You barely speak English.
I barely speak English. Orion and I speak as the same amount of French. We actually probably speak the same amount of English as well. We both mumble and cry a lot, and all that good stuff.
That's pretty funny that you talk about your kid speaking French. I actually have a friend of mine who, when her kid was born, and he was probably about 6 months old, he was reaching for her water cup and made a sound that sounded like, Lou or whatever. And she was like, he knows the French word for water.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah. New parents, man. What a treat. What a hoot.
Probably not getting a lot of sleep, I would say, at that point. It's the 6 month mark. I mean, the 4 month mark, we're okay, but I'm a little nervous to see what's to come. I'm excited, but if your son is speaking or daughter speaking French at 6 months, you're probably a little sleep deprived.
And definitely ahead of the game too, right? It's
right.
Easy prodigy on your hands there.
Right.
Put him in front of a piano and see what he does. I mean, who knows, right?
A little young Beethoven.
Don't make the kid deaf. Come on, dude. Give him Mozart at least.
Hey, to each his own.
Well, we aren't here to actually talk about James's mustache, or that his kid speaks French, or the craving that I have for a Three Musketeers bar right now. We're actually going to talk about some sports. And I can tell, see, here's the funny thing is that James coming back here because you can definitely tell the quarantine didn't really have too adverse an effect on him because of the newborn son. Spending all your time there, you're also considered an essential worker at your other job. But you can tell the itch for sports are coming back. I'm looking at your Twitter timeline, and every time I look, there's some sort of draft question going on for football. So I guess we could start there, because what was I found one that you just talking about late round quarterbacks that you like. Let me see if I can find your actual tweet here. It's all lost in between all sorts of different stuff. Oh, there it is. All right, so 4 QBs. I really like being drafted outside the top 10 right now. For all of you who wait on QBs, parentheses, like me. Matt Stafford, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, and Ben Roethlisberger. Are you listing them in order of their ADP, or are you listing them in order of preference?
Yeah, that was just listed in ADP. I mean, Stafford is definitely my favorite of the group. So, that part of the order wasn't incorrect. If I were to rank them, I think it would probably be Stafford, Goff, Roethlisberger, Jones. So Jones would just shift down to the bottom. But yeah, I think all 4 of those guys have an outside chance of ending in the top 10 in terms of, just where they are ADP. We're in June, right? So obviously ADPs change based on trends and stuff throughout the summer. But right now, we're looking at 4 quarterbacks that I think have tremendous upside. Matt Stafford, who was QB6 before he went down last year. We know the whole industry loves their receivers, right? Everyone loves Marvin Jones. Everyone loves Kenny Golladay. TJ Hawkinson was a first-round pick. They picked up a good pass-catching running back. Stafford, I mean, like is the back a concern? I don't think so. Is the house on the market a concern? I don't think so. I think that Stafford could potentially repeat last year. I mean, it was his best, only 8 games, but it was his best season. I mean, we're talking about a guy, obviously, you prorate the stats and he has 5,000 yards and he has 38 touchdowns. And that's obviously could have been, a little skewed and we don't know how the second half would have played out. But there's no denying the first 6 games were great. So I think Stafford is poised for a big season. I really think, Jared Goff throws the ball 600 times a year, Howard, and now there's a question mark at running back. Is Cam Akers the guy? I mean, can we say definitively he's the guy? I don't know. I mean, they drafted Henderson last year as well, so what's going on there? I love Jared Goff's weapons, and 2 years ago, Jared Goff was a fantastic fantasy producer, currently as QB 17. We're talking about guys like Dak Prescott, who's QB3 this year. And yes, Dak Prescott brings a element that Goff doesn't in the running game. But if you look at Goff from 2018 and Prescott from last year, the numbers aren't too far off. And we're taking Dak Prescott a lot earlier this year than Jared Goff. And we know Big Ben, if he's healthy, if the arm is healthy, if he can throw the ball, he was QB3 in 2018. I think the interesting thing about Daniel Jones for me personally is that even with Saquon, and I know it was his rookie year in 2018, Eli Manning threw the ball almost 600 times. So I don't think there's going to be a lack of pass attempts. The Giants shored up the offensive line, and I think the biggest downside to Daniel Jones is the amount of times he was hit and the amount of times he turned the ball over. I think the offensive line addressing that the Giants did during the draft is a big part of this. And a healthy Saquon Barkley at the backfield and all the weapons, Evan Ingram. The Giants are going to be good offensively, I think. And we know Jones brings that running element. So I think these 4 guys, not all of them are going to finish in the top 10, but I think, 1 or 2 of them could sneak into the top 10. We're talking about a top 10 that currently, ADP-wise, Josh Allen is currently in the top 10. I could see him being outside the top 10. Drew Brees, after everything, where's his standing within the franchise and the team? Aaron Rodgers, is he on the downswing? They didn't really address anything for Aaron Rodgers in terms of offensive weapons outside of a running back, which they didn't need. So, I think there's opportunity for all 4 of those guys to sneak into the top 10 over some current ADP top 10 quarterbacks.
Yeah, listen, I don't mind Big Ben. I agree with you. Coming back fully healthy, he's got a decent ground game to support him. He's got decent pass catching weapons to have there. So I'm in on that. Jared Goff, he definitely improved last year once Sean McVay finally made that turn midway through the season, and he started actually giving Gurley the ball a little bit more. I don't know if that was the plan all along, but again, Goff with the trouble that he has reading defenses, it was really it was a little troublesome at the beginning of the season because he was throwing a ton, but how productive were those games? The one who intrigues me the most, I got to be honest with you, is Daniel Jones. Now I know you're a Giants fan. And, listen, my wife's a Giants fan, so I have to sit there and study the Giants extra close because she's going to give me, throw me a million questions during the course of the game. What I find very odd, is the Giants' defense just so atrocious that with all of these weapons, you look at the Vegas totals for the Giants making the playoffs, let alone winning the division or even, going to the conference championship. It's everybody's down on them completely. And I don't really, I think the turnovers for Daniel Jones are something that he can work on. I think that's, those are mental mistakes is more than they are actual physical mistakes. So I think that's a problem that he can overcome. You look at the weaponry that he's got there with Barkley as a pass catcher, Shepard, Ingram, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton. Like with weaponry like that, I mean, I find it very difficult to not, kind of invest a little bit in a guy like Daniel Jones, and yet this dude just sits there at the bottom of the ADP numbers on a regular basis.
I mean, the defense is dreadful, and I mean, does that kind of intrigues me a little bit more because the Giants are going to constantly be playing from behind. And I mean, that's just more opportunity. That's more chunk yardage at the end of games to Saquon Barkley. That's chunk yardage to guys like Golden Tate. I mean, in 13 games and 12 starts, Jones threw 450 times. And I mean, look, the Giants are going to be trailing. They did very well in the draft, but they didn't address needs. They don't have pass rush. Marcus Golden had 10.5 sacks last year. There's no Marcus Golden walking through that door as of now. And there's no one who had more than 4.5 sacks after Marcus Golden. So they're not getting after the quarterback. Their cornerbacks are out here robbing or performing armed robberies.
Hey, come on! Oh, they said that they were probably dropping all the charges to DeAndre Baker.
Well, good for DeAndre Baker. I'm happy for him.
He still sucks as a quarterback.
Still sucks. So I mean, the more we trail, this whole second half is going to be Daniel Jones, and as much as Saquon Barkley is going to get work in the pass game, what is he? I mean, we've seen constantly. We saw last year when he's healthy, 15 to 20 carries, even when he's dominating, and then the rest is through the air. So I think Daniel Jones has a sneaky chance, and we know the running upside is there. I mean, almost 300 rushing yards in just 12 starts. I think, that's Dak Prescott. Like, Dak Prescott, if Daniel Jones sneaks in a couple more touchdowns, we've seen Dak Prescott on multiple occasions have 6 rushing touchdowns in a season. So I think there's some serious, 30 to 35 touchdown upside out of Daniel Jones, maybe even approach 4,000 yards. And I think, I mean, what's the difference at that point? And we're talking about, I want to go back to Josh Allen because I think they're very similar. Jones has better weapons. Buffalo's more likely to run the ball than the Giants will be because Buffalo's going to be ahead of a lot more games than the Giants will. I mean, I think there's better value on a guy like Jones, who's even probably a little more accurate than Josh Allen.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you on that. I feel like a lot of people are underselling Daniel Jones, but I mean, listen, I like the list. I'm not a huge Stafford fan. I've never been a huge Matt Stafford fan. I can understand what everybody's saying with the half season that he had. Right. I just, again, I always have issue with that when everybody's like, look at his numbers for last year. Look at that. You can't prorate it because you don't know what kind of hits he would take in that second half of the season. And listen, I'm not drafting a quarterback who's got back problems, who might crap out halfway through the season for me. But I mean, if you're looking at the price tag though that you're paying for him, it might not be the worst thing in the world to end up doing. All right, well, I listen. I like your list. I love all your little tweets that you're throwing out there. We got the NFL Draft Guide from Fantasy Alarm, which actually the initial opening of the Living Draft Guide drops this Monday. And I'm sure that we're going to get swashbuckling Aramis over here. A couple of articles that we can get in there. But I mean, listen, I don't know how much you're going to want to do. You're doing this work for KBO DFS right now. And let's face it, man, let's turn that focus to the hardwood. Let's look at the NBA. See, I can see the smile on your face already. I mean, let's face it, man. The NBA with their plan to come back, was it July 22nd, 21st?
It's like the end of July. The official plan. Shams tweeted out the timeline. Let's get the timeline. He broke down everything the NBA is doing. The official timeline: training camp June 30th. The teams will be traveling to Orlando July 7th. And then the season starts July 31st back up. So, and
they're doing like an 8-game play-in kind of thing to, give those teams who are on the bubble the opportunity to bust in, which is funny because it really only matters in the in the Western Conference anyway.
Right.
You look at the teams who are on the bubble in the Eastern Conference, like the Wizards were like, well, we're not even going to play John Wall. We're not, I mean, like, this is where we're at right now. If you really think that we have a shot in 8 games, you got another thing coming. So, I think it's definitely beneficial for the West. So talk to me here. I mean, obviously, from a DFS standpoint right now, and a gambling standpoint as well. I mean, level of excitement, scale of 1 to 10, you're at 15, 16 right now?
Yeah, no question. If we're hard capping at 10, it's a 10. 10. If we're hard capping at 10, it's a 10. If there's no cap, I don't really have a number. I'm just, it's like, especially like it's just something to get away from everything going on in the world too. Like like something so positive that everyone can like unite with, like another sport coming back. And honestly, probably the most well-run sport, if I'm just going to put it out there, from commissioner to players association, everything, like how the COVID was treated. Obviously Rudy Gobert ruined it, but that's a player, and that was nothing to do with like the league. They shut it down. Adam Silver has been very thorough, and hats off to him for getting this back. I'm excited. I mean, 13 teams in the Western Conference playoff picture, I guess. And the last live stream that we did together, we were talking about like, if it went into the playoffs, I think we both like wouldn't care, but also we weren't thinking they would come up with like a 22 team play-in, which I think is a really cool idea. And so did 29 of the 30 teams in the NBA all voted for this format. The only team who didn't, Portland Trailblazers, who are ninth, and they thought there should have been. They released a statement that there should have been a different format, but they're going to play either way. What a statement to make, huh? Like there should be a different format, but we'll play anyway. I think like the Eastern Conference is pretty set in stone from a gambling perspective. I think you bet on the Milwaukee Bucks and then you kind of move on from there. Especially Giannis was rested throughout the year. They like capped him at 30 minutes for the first half of the year. And now you get Giannis with not playing since March. I mean, this is going to be the freshest Bucks team we've seen. I think there are teams like sneaky teams you could bet on. I think the Celtics getting healthy are a sneaky team. Shout out to John producing today. I really do think the Celtics could be sneaky. The Heat have been dominant at home. So I think like the East for gambling, those are the 3 teams. I'm not really in on Toronto coming out of the East again. And I think the Western Conference is pretty set in stone. I think the Lakers and the Clippers. I know though, I mean, teams don't want to. I don't think teams want to play the Pelicans in a series. I think that
right. I mean, do you want to play Zion?
No.
In the first round. I think the Lakers are definitely hoping not to.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially because it's not even just like their team rapport since Zion has come back. I mean, Lonzo Ball, something that we talked about, John, Sean, and I a lot just in our DFS chat, was playing out of this world since Zion came back. I mean, we have Brandon Ingram, who was an all-star. So I think that's a tough series to play against in a first round, something that could potentially, tire you out for the next series. From a DFS standpoint, I'm so happy there's 22 teams because it's obviously a lot easier to select from 22 teams when they're playing than it is from like when we get into like the second round of the playoffs and there's 8 teams we're selecting from, and there's 3 games a night. So I think DFS is going to be the same as it was before. It's just going to be probably even tougher and more competitive because every team is going to be competitive. Every team is going to be trying their ass off because there's no teams tanking in this scenario, and there's no teams really taking it lightly. So you're really going to have to dig into the research if you want to come out on top, and there's no better place than FantasyAlarm.com for that.
Oh, look at you with that shameless company plug right there. So the 22 teams that are going down there, though, the playoffs are going to be how many teams?
So it's basically a play-in tournament where if you were within 4.5 games of the 8 seed, you are playing out these 8 games or however many games they decide, and you have a chance to make it into the playoffs. So the playoffs are normal, 16 teams, but so the Western Conference has 5 teams currently vying for one, or 6 teams vying for one spot, while the Eastern Conference has 2 teams vying for the last spot.
Right.
So, I mean, the Western Conference is still messy because the freaking Phoenix Suns of all teams can get into the postseason if a lot of magic happens and things fall into place. Eastern Conference, maybe the Wizards get in, but like you said, John Wall's not even going to play. So, like, does it matter if they get in? No, they play the Bucks regardless. So, it's a play-in scenario. I think there are teams to watch out for. Portland, if they get in, I mean, they were in the Western Conference Finals a year ago. Yusuf Nurkic will be back. So I think there are definitely some really, really, really interesting storylines in the Western Conference to come back to. John did send a message out that there are currently, like, the Nets are plus 600 to win or to make it to the NBA Finals because the Nets haven't officially ruled out Kevin Durant for this postseason run, which I don't think he's going to play. But we also didn't expect to be returning at the end of July, so I think things might be things could change by then. So
we've got odds out, huh? We're setting to looking to go right now.
I mean, they're officially voting on, like, they voted on everything today, and then there's going to be another vote. Let's see if we can find it. Woj just tweeted it not too long ago. There's an official tweet where they're voting. Let's see. I mean, it was 29-1 vote.
I got that.
Yeah, they set a call.
The opinion.
They have a conference call set for Friday to approve the league's 22-team plan. So the conference call goes well tomorrow because all 29 teams or all 30 teams basically said yes. So the call's gonna, I'm sure, go fine, and then we're gonna have the NBA back. So I'm sure the odds makers are out there with everything already set in stone.
Oh, we should have that. I mean, tomorrow. What I'm hoping is we have them, tomorrow, so that we can sit and kind of talk about it on the Fantasy Alarm Show. Obviously, a number of the live streams that we do here at Fantasy Alarm as well. So make sure that you and Sean and John and Ronas as well. He's another big one as far as gambling on basketball games. I'm going to want to see some odds. I'm going to want to see some numbers. I'm going to want to see some predictions. And we're going to get all that up for everybody out there over at Fantasy Alarm. You don't want to miss it. Now, one more thing I want to talk about here as we cruise through today's little live stream. You and I don't know. I doubt we're alone on an island. Nobody's really spoken up about it, though, all that much. Can we talk boxing here for a second?
100%, please.
Like, boxing's coming back. And, here's the funny thing is that when I was growing up, it was Sugar Ray Leonard. It was Hagler Hearns. It was, it was just the fights were absolutely amazing. The heavyweight division was phenomenal. And then all of a sudden, when the heavyweight division basically became Vladimir Klitschko and nobody else,
right?
I was like, all right, I'm kind of done with this. I'm kind of done, thinking that Shannon Briggs is going to do something. I'm kind of done with Razor Ruddock not, actually, doing anything. So, but I'm dying for some sort of a comeback. Maybe this is only because Mike Tyson is now doing like wrestling promos. But I mean, you and I were talking about that the other day. The dude looks jacked. He looks absolutely ripped. Nothing would make me happier than to see him get one of these little, preliminary bouts of just, him come back. We all laughed at George Foreman when he made his comeback, and he ended up winning a heavyweight title. So looking at Tyson and all this is getting me all sorts of jazzed up for some boxing. But what's up? There's no DFS. There's never been any DFS boxing at all.
No, and Howard, I'm here. I have the infrastructure in place. And if any of the DraftKings and FanDuel devs are listening to this live stream, I have the infrastructure in place for you. So we have MMA, right? And, they have a very good system in place. They, it's probably a little easier to score considering we have takedowns, we have kick, we have a lot of variables in MMA compared to boxing. You're punching. There's no anything else. But I do have an infrastructure, and I think we can look at MMA and take that and apply that to boxing. And I don't think it's a lot different. I mean, boxing is still the premier moneymaker. I mean, the top athletes every year are from boxing. They're not from MMA. The cash cow is Conor McGregor in the MMA. He has not come close to ever making Floyd Mayweather money, Canelo Alvarez money. I mean, Canelo Alvarez got a $365 million TV deal to fight 6 times on a network. No one in MMA can say they've gotten that deal. So I still think boxing financially is the premier sport. I know MMA has a lot of jazz, and that's what's hip right now, but I do have the infrastructure. And I think we keep the conclusion bonuses the same like in MMA, which is, the rounds won, the decision, however that ends up, I think that can be kept the same. I mean, it's, it's scored by
TKO.
Right, exactly. It's scored this. I mean, there's 3 judges in each. There's knockouts. There's split decisions. There's, majority decisions. There's all of that. So I think that part of the DFS world can be kept the same. Then I think we score punches. Obviously, there are multiple punches in boxing. We have jabs, hooks, uppercuts, body shots, and we can count power punches. And I think the jabs are your lowest scored output because, I mean, that's the highest output for a boxer generally. And, you can't score jabs at the highest rate if they're going to be, the highest thrown punch. So I think you score that the lowest. I think power punches are the punch you score the most. And all this you can find on CompuBox, which is, throughout the telecast. There's CompuBox on the website. You can go to Google. You can go to boxingscene.com. They have all the necessary stuff you need to score a fight. And then, I mean, why can't we just implement that type of stuff into DFX boxing and then do the same thing we do with MMA? I mean, like we were talking about a little bit before we got on air, they literally have DFS for everything. They're doing simulations for sports. They're doing Survivor. Boxing is a legitimate sport that has been around forever. I mean, what's the reasoning? What's the holdup? Do you not think it's going to be popular? I mean, when all sports are back, is, gaming DFS that popular? I don't know. Is Survivor going to stay relevant? I don't know. So, I mean, why can't we at least test boxing waters? People are looking for sports to play as we continue this quarantine, as we continue with the MLB negotiations, as we continue to wait for football. I mean, at least give it a chance. I think the infrastructure's in place. And if Mike Tyson fights, that would be amazing.
Well, I mean, I think one of the arguments a lot of people make is that, which I find comical, is the corruption that we do see in boxing. But I mean, right? Have we watched the last 2 MMA cards and seen how pathetic some of the judges were with that? Thing. Or what about DFS Survivor when, guess what? It's been taped already. It's not live. We know what, yes, people have been signing NDAs and they're sworn to secrecy, but give me a break. When people are making money off of that, I've seen DFS on professional wrestling and prop bets on that. Again, completely scored, completely choreographed. So to sit there and exclude boxing, to me, makes absolutely no sense. And I would love it. I would love to see this sport get a little bit of a renaissance, right. Get some of this center stage action. Now, there's a card coming up Tuesday. Next weekend?
They actually they're televising 2 cards in the middle of the week, Tuesday and Thursday. So we have literal boxing back as of Tuesday, Thursday, and then really starting July, we're going to start seeing the big names. End of June, July, when the big names are going to start fighting.
Okay, and for the boxing cards that are coming up, you're going to be doing a little odds article, a little betting article for wageralarm.com.
Yes, sir. Tuesday, we have one of the top.
I wasn't asking. I was telling.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm tell or ask. I mean, either way, I'd love to. And we have a big name on the slab Tuesday in Shakur Stevenson, one of the better up and coming prospects. Not like exciting to watch, but if you really like just live and breathe boxing, I mean, he's very Floyd Mayweather-esque, very, very fundamentally sound defensively, and you miss and then you get hit and you're not going to hit the kid. So very exciting fighter to watch for boxing purists. He is going to probably win every round. Spoiler alert for Tuesday's main card.
For Tuesday, there you go. That's the sneak peek. You want to put your money down now. Doesn't matter what the odds are or anything like that. Get yourself a couple of shares of that. Well, I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm glad that your child is now fully grown and on his own, and you can now focus again on the sport, on the sporting world. Because I mean, come on, it's all coming back. Well, we'll see about baseball. We'll continue the KBO coverage until the end of that if MLB doesn't come back. But you, my friend, are about to be a very busy man between basketball, boxing, and whatever baseball happens that you get to cover. Not to mention the splash of football in there as well.
Bart Scott can't wait.
Bart Scott can't wait. That's going to do it for us here on Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. Big thank you to my favorite Musketeer right now. I can't get past it. I can't actually.
Here, we'll do a little twirl for the.
Do the twirl for everybody. Can you move on in? Show everybody that this isn't. He's not even using the beeswax or the pomade. He claims to have possibly dug into one of his ears at some point, but hey, there you go. Big thanks to John and Pemba for producing this extravaganza for us today. For James Grande, I'm Howard Bender. Thanks so much for watching Fantasy Alarm TV. We'll catch you.